if there was one simple step you could take that would dramatically increase your fluency in Irish? There's no one quick fix, no single approach that will take you there. But focusing on this factor will get you further ahead with your speaking Irish than even learning lots of new vocab, though that's a good thing too. Could it possibly be prepositional pronouns? What even are prepositional pronouns? You've spent loads of time watching or listening to good content, maybe from native speakers. You learn your verb tenses. Maybe you even make flashcards to commit things to memory. But now you're trying to speak Irish and halfway through a sentence you realise one of those tricky pronoun things is happening and you can't think which one to use. Maybe you know them when you hear them, but it's hard to pull them together without coming to a halt mid-sentence. Yes, those prepositional pronouns can be a headache, but they are an important key to thinking sentences in Irish rather than translating in your head from English. And I promise that if you start mastering these, a whole new horizon of fluent expression can open up to you. This is the first in a series of videos in which we'll talk about how you can master prepositional pronouns. So be sure to watch out for those that follow. But first, let's do a quick recap. What's a preposition? What's a pronoun? A preposition is a word or words used before a noun or pronoun to show location, time, direction, or other relationships between words, like from, to, with, before, after, on, about, next to. We have these in English too. What's a pronoun? Well, they're the little words that stand for nouns so that we don't have to keep repeating ourselves by using the name. So, if I said, I dislike this cake because this cake is too sweet and I don't like this cake, it would start to sound very odd. Instead, we use it. I dislike this cake because it is too sweet and I don't like it. You can look at it, but you'll have none of it. So what does Irish do differently? In Irish, very often, when a preposition meets a pronoun, they merge. And one of the difficulties is that when they merge, they don't look quite the same. Now, before we get into this, I will say it's not every preposition. One thing you can do is first learn the ones that it isn't. Stenson, in Modern Irish, a comprehensive grammar, says, not all prepositions have inflected forms for pronoun objects. The following do not, and are simply followed by the regular non-subject pronoun forms. Ach, gan, Godí, mar, marach, ná, seachas. And she gives some examples. Okay, so that's prepositions that don't join up with the pronouns. But what about the prepositions that do? Here's an important thing. They aren't just used in a literal sense. They're also used idiomatically. Many times that in English we'd use an active subject-verb-object structure. I like this, or you are hungry. Irish will use a completely different kind of structure with these personal prepositions. Is málum, I like. It is good with me, to say that you like it. Tá ocras ort, hunger is on you, rather than you are hungry. Here we have what at first seems a double complexity. One, you have to think prepositionally in a way to know which expressions are built this way. And two, you have to know the inflected form of the preposition for each personal pronoun. How on earth will we know them all? Well, first, it does follow something of a pattern. You can either find a good table online, and I'll put some links in the description below to help with that. This one's from Éamonn O'Donnell's Irish Grammar, a Practical course. And look for the patterns yourself. Or you can read a description of it, like that in Stenson again, where she says, first person singular forms all end in M, second singular in T. All first person plural forms end in INN, and second plural in IBH. What happens to the prepositional stem before these endings varies, however. She then goes on to describe the stem changes before adding that in the third person it's so different that it's better to just learn them. And there she does provide a mini table. But this raises the question, what is the best way to learn them? Now, many textbooks will introduce these gradually, one kind in each chapter and naturally. So you might not find them all jammed in a table in one chapter, but encounter them as you go along. So long as you pay attention and register what is happening, this can be a good way for the eventual pattern to build in your mind and become familiar, lodge in your memory. But the risk is, when something is not all laid out and explained at once, you might miss what is going on and find yourself at a loss when constructing your own sentences as you speak. Because of the way I learned my first foreign languages and the way I began with Irish, for which you can see my playlist and check out some of the resources that I have used and reviewed, I'm a big fan of drills. Not drills alone, okay? I'm not suggesting we need to return to outdated methods. Many people have bad memories of this kind of thing from school because they could recite things without knowing what on earth they were talking about. But now it's different. You're in charge of your own learning, and drills can be a part of that. They're a useful thing, and we shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. They're useful in exactly the same way that the times table is useful for maths. You don't generally learn the times table for its own sake, even if it does have some impressive and intriguing patterns in it. You learn it so that you can make certain operations automatic without having to think them through. If you're at the till and you're buying something, you don't want to think about multiplying. You just want to do 5 times 4 in your head to see what it's going to cost you. And because you know your times table, you can do it. And the same is true for prepositional pronouns and many other grammatical features. I'm going to suggest 2 ways you can drill them and commit them to memory so that they become automatic like that, like your times table when you speak or write. The first one we've already seen, and that's tables. Here you have choices. You can compile them yourself, and I strongly recommend trying that because actually laying them out makes you remember them when you do it yourself with your own hands on the keyboard or with a pen. Or you can use the ones found online, as I've already mentioned, and you can add to them or adapt them for your own use. It may be that you already know the very frequently used ones, and it's the more obscure prepositional pronouns that aren't quite lodged in here. Either way, you can build yourself a resource like that. There's a problem with tables alone, though. That problem is that the items become atomized, detached, not hooked into something you can actually use and not connected to their multiple meanings. It's one thing to know that ag becomes agam, agat, age, eke, agen, agi, aka, and how to pronounce it, which is a whole other complication given the different dialects and regions. There you have to make a choice which way you're going to recite them, and just recognize that there are other ways. You're not always going to hear them sounding the same. Sometimes you'll hear agam as and some areas say agam. But you want them to stick not just as detached words all by themselves. You want them to pop up naturally when you're producing the language. For this purpose, we need to commit them to memory in sentences, preferably ones that showcase more than one way, whether literal or idiomatic, that the preposition can be used. Following this introductory video to prepositional pronouns, you will find a series of videos that looks at each preposition and prepositional pronoun in turn, looking at its literal usages and the way in which it can be used in idiomatic expressions. They will include drills for you to practice along with me or by yourself. We'll begin with the pronoun eg. See you in the rest of the playlist.